Chris Jones here, Proline Racing, shop manager, do some of the engine development work here along with Petty and Doug and Eric. So we're just going to cover some of the basic components here that we're dealing with on James's engine for the Procharger F3 136R deal, 3,000 horsepower plus engine. So we'll start here. This is our intake manifold, or rough approximation of it. Visner actually works with us very closely on this. We went over several things when we started building our manifolds. One of the big things for our intake is a plenum, a large plenum volume. Trying to get the air calmed down a little bit inside the plenum, cylinder to cylinder distribution. Compared to some of the other stuff that we've run in the past, we've had really good luck with these and good success as far as our cylinders. Steve's always been very happy with these. So one of the other things that we've done here on the Visner intakes is we've gone to a billet rail. We have a -16 billet rail, which allows us to run the injectors in line instead of having to have two separate rails. Simplifies it a little bit, drops a little bit of weight. Mounting system was also very crucial. Some of our older engines, we had some issues with mounts trying to move around, and that can cause problems. That can cause fires if injectors try to pop out of their holes. So that was another thing, again, we worked closely with Visner on. That pretty much covers it. It's all billet. There isn't anything on here that's not billet. Fully O-ring design. The plenum, the top lid to the plenum is O-ring. The runners themselves are actually O-ring to the bottom portion of the plenum. The valley tray is kind of cool here. This is a reversible intake. The way our center burst plate is, you can actually mount this forward or rearward. So on our turbo application, some of the guys choose to put the throttle body in the rear. You can actually take this thing and spin it around, take the valley tray and spin it around. Like I said, it's fully O-ringed as well. Provision for an oil fill. We don't use it very often, but it's there. Hemis are kind of notorious for trying to fill them with oil and tries to spit oil out. So if you fill it directly into the valley, it's kind of nice. Moving on to one of the real crucial components here, which of course is always a cylinder head. This is actually a P8 version of an Alan Johnson cylinder head that we've been working with them on for a very long time. We have the exclusive rights to the NHRA cylinder head. One of the major portions of this head that sets it apart from a lot of the other heads out there is the intake runner itself. I say this is a P8. This is actually a P3 version of the cylinder head. We don't have a P8 here in the shop to show everybody, but if you compare the P3 head, this is the outlaw version of the head, this runner volume is significantly smaller than the P8. One of the other things Alan Johnson has worked on very closely with us and on their own, Rick, being the main cylinder head guy there we deal with, exhaust flow numbers. So on turbocharged engines, exhaust flow is crucial, and this is one of those other things that we made the leap and bound type of jump power-wise when we moved to the Alan Johnson head. Valves are actually relatively small for an outlaw style head. We're under 2,500 on our intake valve, but the exhaust valves are very large. They're over 2 inches in diameter for the exhaust valve. A little bit unusual, but it works very, very well. Moving forward, we go to our reed rockers. So we use reed rockers on basically all of our Hemi engines. It's a billet steel rocker arm design. It runs on a shaft, oils here with a bronze bushing and a roller tip. One of the things that we do here on our engines is we actually take and oil through the cylinder head, through the rocker arm, and down to our lifters. So our lifters actually get full-time oiling, which is something most people don't do, and honestly it's probably not a necessity, but we like to feed the roller bearing on the lifters themselves with some oil to try to give them a little bit extra life. And it seems to work very well for us. So that's most of the major top end components. Moving on to the block, pretty standard fare. This is actually a billet block now. Alan Johnson moved away from the forgings in the interest of making it a little more streamlined as far as their manufacturing process. We don't really lose a significant amount of strength. You're still going to see top fuel style blocks with a forging. Forging actually moves the grain around a little bit and tends to make it a stronger piece. But what they've done is they've lightened these blocks a little bit. Most of our outlaw engines, we run a short deck design which does a couple of things. It shortens the push rods up about 1/2 of an inch. It does lighten the engine, which is the most significant difference for us. It takes about 12 pounds off from a standard 10.725 deck down to a 10.225, which is what you're seeing here. In the billet iteration of these blocks, you see that this area here is a little bit different. So where the cylinder head clamps down on the inner head bolt or head stud, this has all been integrated. The older forgings actually just have a wing here that comes up. So this helps to strengthen the top of the block up significantly. They moved to an O-ring design here, so when you put the head gasket on, you don't have to silicone everything up. They do the same thing on the cylinder head as well. Other key things with the block, we run a 65mm camshaft, which helps stiffen up the valve train a little bit. Hemis are pretty notorious for having a flexi flyer valve train, so that's one of the things that we've worked very, very hard on for the life of the engine that we've had, and we've made big strides in gaining some control in our valve gear, adding longevity. Valve springs are a big thing with the Hemi. You're turning a lot of RPM most of the time, upwards of 10,000, maybe a little bit higher on some of these things, especially screw-blown guys. They turn them really hard. But yeah, that's valve springs. We started off, our valve springs were lasting 2 to 3 passes. We're now, into the 30 to 35 run range with our NHRA engines, which they typically see a fairly aggressive camshaft profile. That's one of the things on this engine in particular with James's deal. We work very closely with Comp Cams, some good people up there, Billy Gottbold, Dean Harvey. Got to give them a shout out because we went back and forth, lots of emails, lots of talking, trying to figure out where to go with the camshaft profile on this particular engine, and it seems to have shown us big gains. That covers most of it. That's pretty much all I have at this point in time.